Kristin Cavallari, who was married to Jay Cutler. I actually watched Very Cavallari a couple of times because Jay Cutler was in it, and I'm a football fan. Mm-hmm. And he's so aloof and so good, and she's so not Kim Kardashian-like.
No, but
she's got this fashion business and these good-looking women with push-up things, and she's
and
doing her
just
thing.
Kind of there.
And he's just kind of, he walks in the room, hey, and he's got his slippers on, and it was just a great vibe. Anyway, they divorced. They have a 9, a 7, and a 5-year-old. And they have joint custody of their kids. And she was asked in a podcast yesterday about how she's doing. I guess it's been about 6 or 7 months. And I think it's interesting because I'm going through the same situation where I have joint custody. We're going back and forth. It's very difficult. There are good things about it and there are bad things about it. Divorce will always suck and there's no winners in it. But you make the best of it. You adapt and you try to find things, and it opens doors to different parts of your life that perhaps you didn't know existed. So she said that her split with her ex-husband was the brightest and saddest time of her life.
Sure.
She said there have been times over the 18 months, so I guess it's been longer than that, where I'm like, is this the right decision? Mm-hmm. She said, Jay and I actually went on a couple of dates like months and months ago, but we did after we got divorced. Then I was like, okay, it's not there for me anymore. Yeah. And this is very candid and transparent, and that's what I love about this interview. The months since filing for divorce, Cavallari told the podcast, it's been such a roller coaster ride filled with some really sad moments. In hindsight, however, the entrepreneur knows she made the right decision. She said the thing is with Jay, we aren't getting a divorce because we lost our love for each other, which really made it challenging because we were really crazy about each other. But I decided I didn't want to be in a toxic relationship anymore.
Ooh.
And had to break it off.
That's like...
Yeah, well...
that went from like... sad and we went our separate ways to that's bad.
Yeah, toxic for her. I don't know if I don't know his side of the story, if it was toxic for him. Right. You could tell that, and that's what made the Very Cavallari show kind of funny, because you could tell he didn't give a rip about what, okay,
right.
Yeah, go do your thing. I got practice today. And then, of course, he retired, and I think the third season was his first retirement year, and you could see where when you're in OTAs and you're playing NFL and you're gone 4 days a week, he had his own thing, and all of a sudden he's around the house all the time, and that's what really made it really good. But that's made it hard and made me sit here and question it for a few months when she realized it was a toxic relationship. Like a lot of times we talk about, where you'll have a relationship, say the sex is really good, there's this passion, you love each other, you generally care about each other, but there's something that just doesn't quite fit, and you break up, you really miss that person, you rebound, maybe you hook up, blah, 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 and then you go, oh, this is why it didn't work.
Yeah, well,
because that stuff doesn't go away.
And that's what you want.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, well, I shouldn't say that way. You want either to have that experience, this is why I don't, or in some cases, depending on how long you've been apart, you go, oh, maybe we've been apart long enough. Maybe we can. What you don't want, and I see this a lot, is this sort of, it's almost your mind playing tricks on you. Mm-hmm. We should be together because we want to, and the reality is we should be together because I'm scared to be by myself.
Yep.
That's powerful.
And, and even in a toxic relationship, there is a comfortable. And I don't know what the toxicity was.
It doesn't have to be like abusive. Let me tell you, I've sat with more, well, I was going to say women, but women and men, where they're like, I feel like we should be together. Why? Well, because my existence like this by myself, this is terrible.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so what is wonderful about that? Well, at least I'm comfortable. I knew, there's somebody there. I'm like, is okay? Is that what you want, or is that this unknown bad thing is so bad that you're willing to go back? And it's let's say it's only been 6-8 months. And I have to be careful because I got to walk that line. It's far be it from me to tell you to or not.
Yeah.
But it's my job to say, hey. Don't go back. What is it? The devil you know versus the devil you don't? Mm-hmm. Like, don't do that. And then now you're going to get into the kid thing, too.
She said going back and dating him a little bit really made me reaffirm, I think I made the right decision. She said growing up with divorced parents influenced the way Cavallari has approached the breakup with her children. She told the podcast she simply wanted her kids to see her happy and believes they're better off with parents going separate ways. I know you've had a feeling about that from a Catholic Christian standpoint.
No, and I understand that. I understand
push through, and it's interesting because my son just had a birthday party on Sunday, and I have no problem around being around my ex-wife.
Yep.
I don't know how she feels, but obviously there's an uncomfortableness there because we used to be together for 20 years, and now we're not. And so our kids want to see us. They don't necessarily think we would ever get back together again because I don't think that would happen. But they do like it. They're the happiest when they see us in the same room together because they're getting us both.
Well, and yeah, but I would argue in the same room and at some level of peace.
Yes.
And I'm like, you can't be twitchy, angry, nervous, aloof because that makes kids even more. That's almost as damaging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She said, I don't want my kids growing up thinking that this is a good relationship because I got to see my mom remarried and in a good relationship.
Yeah,
so I knew what one was. So she came from divorced parents. She saw her mom get remarried and see her actually in a healthy relationship. And so she saw that.
Yeah.
So that's okay. But we don't know. I don't know if I'm going to get remarried. We don't know what kind of relationship our kids are going to see us in. They don't know. I don't know if they're going to see their mom get remarried. And so hopefully they see that. And again, having love for both their mom and their dad and seeing her in love with another man. I don't know how that all plays out. She did say that if the two didn't share children, she'd never see him again. She said, I never talked to him again, which is,
that's interesting.
There really isn't a reason to.
No.
Unless you're in business together, you have some things tied together, whether it's insurance policies or insurance or whatever, but you separate all that stuff when you get a divorce.
And you go your separate ways.
You go your separate ways. And there's really no, and it sucks in that you can spend 20 years of your life with somebody and not pretend it never happened. Because it did. The experiences, the memories, the good and the bad are all there, and hopefully you learn from those experiences and you can take that to your next relationship or your next life or whatever. But it's really interesting because I think most people who are divorced, if we didn't have kids, I'd never see it. Well, you're right. There's no reason to, unless you still have some type of, we spent 20 years together, I'm concerned about you. I think your story is amazing, because your mom divorced your father.
Yep.
And then your father got ill, and who took care of him? Your mother did.
And my stepdad.
And your stepdad.
Yeah.
I just decided that the week I have my kids, I'm mom's. They have a 7-on, 7-off. She told the outlet, I have a week off where I can go to dinner every night with my friends if I want to. I can really work hard if I want to. I can stay at the office later if I need to. She said, so I think it's super cool. She said, but when I have my kids, I'm all mom the whole entire week. I try to work, and that's exactly what I'm trying to do here. It forces you to work. You get more done than you ever thought you'd get done.
Right.
Because you don't realize having kids around your house. You know, I remember sitting down here and I'd get anxious hearing my son run across the floor upstairs. I'd freak out. Now I don't have to be concerned with that anymore. She said, I do mean that kids are resilient with school and all the activities. We've done a good job putting them first. So, you know, I thought that was really interesting. There was nothing in it that I thought was wrong. I think she's being real.
Yes, I agree.
And again, you know, I think we always say we put our kids first, as you should, in certain things.
Yeah, right.
We know that if mom and dad aren't healthy because they're spending too much time taking care of the kids, that they're going to see that, and it will end up in a divorce.
That's right.
You have to have that strong love. And I do think it's super important that kids do see their parents, whether divorced or not, in a loving relationship. I used to see my dad kiss my mom every morning, and I remember those things, and that solidified my heart that I was coming from a strong family, and I remembered that, and that boded really well for me. But to your point too, it is uncomfortable. You know, we were sitting in a booth, and they kept pushing us together.
Yeah,
well, not on. It was just the booth we were sitting in.
Yeah,
and of course, I have no problem with that. It's uncomfortable because there's somebody there across the table that didn't want to be with you anymore.
Yes.
And so it's kind of like, it sucks. But I realized we moved on. The good thing is I wasn't heartbroken because the last few years were very difficult for a lot of different reasons. And to look at her in her face, you know, kind of.
It's because you're.
My neck hurt because I was looking the other way towards the kids at the end of the table. And then whenever I'd sit down there, she would get up and move around the other side. I'm kind of like.
You're in the, right? Yeah. So What you hope is in somewhere between 1 and 10 years from now,
Yeah.
you develop a new relationship with your ex. When you have kids, you develop a new relationship. It's different. And listen, it is, I talk about divorce a lot as a social death. And I talk about it that way because it's so, a part of you has, a part of your life has died.
Yeah.
But they're not dead. You know, the whole "you're dead to me." They're not dead. They're there. You see them, and so you're left with this weird sort of, you can't go back, and maybe you don't want to go back, but you have to sort of figure out how do you transition that relationship. And what's really weird, I think, is when you don't have kids. Yeah. She talks about, if I didn't have kids, there would be no reason to ever see him again. Except they're out there.
Yeah.
Again, unlike a death where that they're no longer there, that they're out there. And so, man, you talk about awkward and having to adapt. And then the other piece I would say too, and I know this flies in the face of certain religions. I hear all the time, we're staying together so that the kids will see their mom and dad. Together. So the kids can have a mom and a dad. And as a psychologist, we will tell you all day long. Far be it from us to conflict with your religious views. That's your religious views.
Yeah.
But if you want to know about the psychological health of your kids seeing you in a relationship that is not healthy is far worse. Clear research, far worse than having the divorce, the transition, and the difficult times in the transition, and seeing mom and dad healthy.
Yeah.
The kids need to see that their parents are healthy. Ideally, their parents are healthy and together, but it is more important to them to see that they're psychologically healthy than to see them together and not healthy.
Yeah.
Kenny Loggins wrote a song, "I Did It For You."
Yeah.
And the line is, because it's something I did it for you because love is supposed to be the real thing. And man, when you're faking it, your kids know.
Yeah, it is.
They don't. You can BS them for a very short time.
Yeah.
And man, to BS them, you're going to have to put a lot of effort into it. So I'm it isn't easy. Kids are resilient, but again, the most important thing is that they have models where the person is happy and healthy.
Yeah, and I don't question that, and we're my religious.
Yes, and I understand that.
And when I got married, I was 36 years old, and I was like, this is it. We didn't have divorces in my family. My ex-wife's side, everybody was divorced, I think, with the exception of her sister. Not to say that, but we also know that's a predetermining factor where if you come from a divorced family, you have a better shot at being divorced yourself. That's the truth. And there's research on that as well. Because you've seen it. Yeah. And it's not more, it's not okay. You're just not as desensitized to it because you've lived through it that period of time. And so, you do everything you can to make it work.
Of course.
And that's the thing. And again, it takes two sides. And you do everything you possibly can, and I'd say marriage counseling, I'd say priest, you do whatever you possibly can do, and you just try to remember not to fly off the hook because there's a lot of things that end up being said that make it more difficult. And it's important, and again, it's important because it does no good to belittle your significant other.
Yeah, but even if you want to.
Yeah.
Even if you want to.
The kids already know.
Yeah.
They see it, they feel it, they know the situation.